everybody. We're just waiting for folks to arrive, and we're also making sure our YouTube channel, we're having some technical sound difficulties on that side, so just bear with us for one moment. We'll give it another few minutes for folks to log on and for our YouTube channel to be transmitting sound properly. Just one moment, please. That's good? All right. I'm hearing from folks via text in the room. They can hear us, and YouTube, they're good. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual town hall. If you haven't had the chance to talk with me yet, I'm Jeff Greenlee, Superintendent of Belpre City Schools, and I'm delighted to be here with you tonight to talk a little bit about Belpre City Schools' Restart and Recovery Plan. We'll go over an overview of that, and then to answer any questions that you might have. So, as many of you know, our objective tonight is to give you families at home the facts that you need to make a decision. So we announced that we will provide a 5-day in-person classroom experience as long as the Ohio Public Health Advisory System permits that, and we will give you more details on that in just a moment. But we also want to make sure that families have an option to go fully virtual if they would like. So our intent tonight is to give you guys all the information that you need to make an informed decision. So as we go through the plan tonight, if you have any questions that pop in your mind, well, we ask you to write them down or put them in the comments, and we'll track them as we go. And then at the end, we'll circle back and we'll answer any questions that you might have. So, okay. So as we announced last week, and every family will be getting a copy in the mail this week of Belpre City Schools Reopening Plan. This is a 3-page document that goes over the options available to families and is a broad overview of our plan. And we'll also include with that document FAQs of questions that we have already collected so that families can have the benefit of reading through some questions that we've already received. So families have until August 3rd to let us know if they would like to go virtual or if they would like to enroll with us for a traditional experience in our schools. So that option will be decided by data, and it will be decided by local data published by the state of Ohio that is directly tied to Washington County's COVID-19 indicators here on the ground. So for those of you that are not familiar, a brief overview. Ohio Mike DeWine announced a few weeks ago that there's a new Ohio Public Health Advisory System where every county will be flagged level 1, which is yellow, and that means that 0 to 1 indicators have been met out of 7. Level 2, which is orange, where 2 out of 2 or 3 indicators have been triggered. Level 3, which is red, where 4 or 5 indicators have been triggered. And level 4 is purple, where 6 out of 7 indicators have been met. So we have tied our Restart and Recovery Plan directly to those indicator levels. If Washington County is under a yellow level 1 or orange level 2, we will offer a 5-day traditional in-class experience. If we move to a level 3 where 4 or 5 indicators have been met, we will go to a hybrid model where we will have students broken down by last name. I think it's A through L will be on Monday and Tuesday, and then the other half of students will be on Thursday and Friday. And Wednesday will be a day for us to deep clean the building and to provide educators an opportunity to plan remote learning experiences for families at home during the rest of the week. If Washington County were to go to a level purple, at that point we would go to full remote learning, which would look similar to what it looked like last March when we abruptly closed schools under Mike DeWine's orders, but with significant changes to our delivery model derived from what we learned and what we've collected from survey information about how to best serve students remotely. So we have learned a lot, and we'll incorporate that in the event that we have to go full remote this school year. So just for the folks that aren't familiar with it, this document is available online for families to utilize that shows all of the indicators. The 7 indicators that are currently used by the state are new cases per capita, which is flagged if there are more than 50 cases per 100,000 residents over the last 2 weeks. Another indicator is sustained increase in new cases, which is flagged if there's an increasing trend of at least 5 consecutive days of overall cases by onset date over the last 3 weeks. Third indicator is proportion of cases not in a congregate setting. So how many of the cases in Washington County are based on community spread, and how many are congregate setting? Number 4, a sustained increase in emergency department visits for COVID-like illnesses. So how many folks are showing up to our local hospitals displaying symptoms? Number 5, a sustained increase in outpatient visits for COVID-like illnesses. Number 6, sustained increase in new COVID hospital admissions, again, tied local to local Washington County data. And 7, what is the intensive care unit bed occupancy rate for us here locally? And that is flagged if the number of occupied ICU beds in our region goes above 80% for at least 3 days in the last week, and more than 20% of ICU beds are being used for COVID-19 patients for at least 3 days in the last week. So those are the 7 indicators that every week on Thursday we receive information from the governor at what our county status is, and we will be working very closely with the Washington County Health Department and the Belpre Marietta Health Department, and Goon, who is our local Director of Public Health. She has been amazing to work with and has been very, very helpful as we have met internally and thought about how we can reopen schools in a safe way. There are 3 additional measurements that they are beta testing currently that they might roll out. Those are the rate of new cases from contacts of known cases, tests per capita, and overall percent positive of COVID-19 tests that are performed. So that's just a brief overview of the alert indicator system here in Ohio. If you would like more information on that, I encourage you to visit coronavirus.ohio.gov, and you can download and receive and read this material for yourself. So with that, I want to briefly go over a little bit about what are some of the safety precautions that we are taking this year for the in-person experience, and then I'll also provide an overview of what virtual learning will look like for families, and then we'll talk a little bit about what I think families should be thinking about as you weigh your options for this year. So first, we'll have more frequent cleaning of common areas and restrooms this year. We have purchased wipes and disinfectant for classrooms and entry points. We'll be posting additional custodial and nursing support positions so that we can have additional personnel in the building to help make sure it's clean and that we have medical staff on hand. Families will be responsible to take their students' temperatures at home, and that has been updated on CDC guidance just on Thursday, that the CDC does not believe currently that we need to do more than that. But we have authorized principals, if there's a level 2 emergency or more, that we might up our temperature checks. But for now, we would ask that families please take your students' temperature in the morning, and if they have greater than 100, please keep them home. And if they have less than 100, then send them, and we would look forward to a great day. Facial coverings. For students in grades 4 through 12, facial coverings will be required unless there's a bona fide medical issue. And if that's the case, we would just ask that you send us an email with some notes from your doctor explaining to us what that issue is, and we will accommodate that. If students in grades K through 3, we will not be requiring facial coverings. We do recommend them, but we also understand that for many students that age, that may not be a practical guideline. And all students on the bus, regardless of age, would need to have a facial covering. And that's really due to how closely students will be on the bus. We have been authorized to have students tubed to a seat as a floor here in Washington County. And because they'll be less than 3 feet, we would need to have students wear a facial covering if they're on the bus. So K-3 families, that may be one thing that you'll need to consider as you think about what this year will look like for you. If that is not an option for your family, we would ask you to drop your child off or consider other means this year for your student. But that will be a requirement that, based on the health department, that we'll need to have in place, even for those kiddos that are in grades K through 3 that are riding the bus. Water fountains will be inoperable this year, so we ask that students bring a water container with them, and we will be installing some water container fillers. We heard early on from the high school and middle school folks about concerns about heat and facial coverings, and we are installing AC at the high school and the middle school. That work is being done as we speak, and we hope that it will be operational by the start of the school year. Unless there's some issue with the installation, we believe that will be ready to go. Another thing that we'll be doing is cohorting where possible. So middle and high school students, we are going to try to the extent possible, set the same students next to each other as possible, so that if they ride the same bus, they're sitting together, or if they're in a different class together, they're sitting together, so that we can, to the extent possible, have similar groups of students sitting together. So in the event that there is a COVID transmission, we could contact trace and we could isolate those students instead of having to isolate more students. In addition, in K6, we will, in grades 4 through 6, we're also looking at the possibility of our teachers rotating rather than students in the hallway, again, so we can cut down the number of students moving through the hallway, and so that we can maintain students in one part of the building where possible. We will not be sharing supplies in the building. We will have increased hand washing, and anytime a student leaves the room, they would need to sanitize their hands on their way back in. We would also need to wash hands before and after lunch, before and after recess, and other times frequently throughout the day. We will be training students and staff on proper hand washing, social distancing, mask or facial covering utilization, and the vampire cough. And as I said earlier, for folks that are going to be sending their student in person, we will not be doing a temperature check at the building, but we will ask that parents take temperatures before they come into school today, and we will randomly test students during the day. And if a student is sent to the office with one of these 4 symptoms, we will send them home for the day. So if they have a temperature over 100, if they have a persistent cough, a loss of taste or smell, or shortness of breath, we will send those students home. We will isolate those students, and we will send them home, and we would need to have a doctor's release before those students can return back to us in the building. So if your child has any of those 4 symptoms, they need to stay home until they get better, and if a child presents with that when they come, we will send them home, and they will need to have a doctor's release before they can come back into the building. If a child has chills, headaches, sore throat, nausea, or diarrhea, if they are presenting with 2 of those symptoms, we would send them home. So again, that's chills, headaches, sore throat, nausea, or diarrhea. So as a parent, we would ask you to screen your children, and if they have temperature over 100, persistent cough, loss of taste or smell, or shortness of breath, they stay home, or if they have any 2 of the following symptoms: chills, headaches, sore throat, nausea, or diarrhea. Okay, so that are some of the increased precautions that we're taking in building to make sure that our classrooms are sanitized and our faculty and students are safe as possible. And this is a little bit about what the virtual learning option looks like. So again, for folks that have not been with us or are just tuning in, all of Belpre City School students will have the ability to choose between an in-person experience, as long as the Washington County Indicator System allows us to have an in-person experience, or they can go and elect to go virtual. So the virtual experience will look different depending upon what grade level the student is. So for elementary students, we will guarantee that your student will be assigned a Belpre City Schools teacher as their teacher to teach them and to facilitate their learning during the year. That instruction will be synchronous with grade level peers in the building, so those teachers will continue to talk with other grade level teachers in the building, and the pacing and general curriculum will follow and track right along where students in the building are. It will be a different experience than last year. As I mentioned, we learned a lot and appreciate everyone's patience, but we will be having more frequent Zoom meetings as part of that. Some additional recorded classroom content for families. We will have office hours with the teacher, and I cannot read what I wrote there. But those are some additional options that we have learned from last year that we will provide for families at home that will elect to go virtual. We will provide workbooks and textbooks. We will communicate more closely to the start of the school year what those materials will look like. And if your student has an IEP, they will continue to be served. They'll continue to receive their accommodations and therapies as necessary. Now, I will say that there could be an IEP goal out there that may not be able to be facilitated via virtual learning. And if that's the case, we would do what we always do, which is get the IEP team together and talk about what the needs of the child are and how we can best serve that student. So we will continue, whether you are virtual or you are in person, to comply with individual students' IEP. If for students in the high school, we will be going with the Ohio Valley Educational Service Center, which is a regional consortium of school districts, so all of the Washington County school districts belong, as well as those schools in Noble, and also some in Guernsey and some in Monroe County, are all part of this regional consortium, and they will be providing service for our students in the high school. That will not be synchronous, so they will be assigned a virtual teacher through their program. They will be assigned or have access to content experts in the various contents, and we'll also have a mentor that is local here in Washington County that will liaise between the student and the family and the school district. So unlike elementary school virtual learning, the high school virtual learning experience will not be synchronous and will be used through our partner at the Ohio Valley Educational Service Center. There is a course list available on our website that families can explore, and we were also given a frequently asked questions document that we uploaded as well for families. And that's, if you have our Belpre City Schools app, that's through our documents page. You'll see a folder that says COVID-19, and you select that, and you'll see frequently asked questions. And if not, on our website, on the menu side, you can access our coronavirus or COVID-19 resources as the very first drop down on the menu, where you can access those documents, the course list, and frequently asked questions. So credit will transfer back to our high school, and we will, for students that are both elementary and high, we will provide a Chromebook, and we will also provide localized technical support for those students. So that is a brief overview of what virtual learning looks like. Again, if there are folks that have questions out there, write them down, send them to us in the comment section, and we will try to get them answered for you. I do have a couple of frequently asked questions that I got earlier, if I can find them, that have already been sent to us. I just answered, will in-person attendance and virtual learning be synchronous? Again, that will depend on whether you're a high school or elementary student. Is the importance of curriculum equity between in-person and virtual learners being addressed? And so I want to be real clear. We believe strongly in equity. We want every student and every family to have an equitable access to curriculum. So if you are our student virtually or you're our student in person, we will strive to make sure that your family has an equitable educational experience. And that's very important to us, and we will work very, very hard to ensure that virtual learning for students in the elementary school tracks very, very closely to what's going on in the building. And as I've reviewed the course catalog for the high school option, many of the elective courses which we offer are available in that card catalog, in addition to others. I just said card catalog. On that course catalog, in addition to others. So that's that. Textbooks and workbooks can be obtained. We will set up a delivery time for those. IEP accommodations will be upheld. And again, if there are any issues, we will have individual meetings to discuss that. Will virtual students be able to eat a school lunch? The answer is yes. Those students will be able to eat a school lunch. We're currently exploring what that will look like. It might be a meal pickup on Monday night with meals for the rest of that week and then the following Monday. But we're still working on that, and we will get details to you soon. But we do, through a waiver of the USDA, we will have the ability for for virtual students to continue to eat school lunch. And for virtual students, that will be regardless of income. So that waiver would cover any student, regardless of income, if they go virtual learning this year. I've got a lot of questions about what happens if a student or a staff member is exposed to COVID-19. So my understanding is if a student at our campus we suspect to have COVID-19 or is displaying symptoms of COVID-19, as I mentioned earlier, we will send them home. We will immediately isolate that student, and we will send them home. And that student would be required to be checked by a doctor and authorized to come back. And we would also ask those families to notify the public health department as well and let them know that you were sent home and are displaying symptoms of COVID-19. If we strongly suspect that a student has or is displaying symptoms of COVID-19 or staff member, we may ourselves also make a referral to the public health department of Belpre, Marietta. So what will happen is the health department, if they get a positive test from the school, they will call us and they will ask us for seating charts on the bus and in classrooms, and they will interview the student, and then once they go through their contact tracing protocols, they will give us quarantine letters for folks that they have deemed would need to go into quarantine for having been exposed to COVID-19. So I've gotten a lot of questions about, how close do I have to be sitting for a quarantine order, or what will happen? And my answer to that is I don't know. The public health department will do what it feels is in the best interest of public health, and we will comply with those orders if we get them. So that is a little bit about what that process will look like. If a student has COVID-19, they would need to have 3 days without a fever and other symptoms improved, and 10 days since the symptoms first improved, and they would need a letter either from their doctor or from the Belpre Marietta Public Health Department releasing them to return to school. So again, that's in the event of a positive COVID-19 test in our school district. That would be the protocol that we would utilize. Before I turn it over to questions, I just want to talk a little bit about the decision-making process that families have to make here. So we feel strongly that we want to make sure that you have all the facts that you need to make an informed decision, so please ask away today so we can answer those questions. But every family is going to have to sit down at the dinner table, and they're going to have to talk about their family, their student, what needs they have, what risk indicators or factors they may have in their family, and will need to make a decision about where their student or in what way their student will attend. So some factors that I might consider is, how did your student do with online learning last year? If they thrived with it and you feel like it was an experience that they did well, I think that would lend you more towards virtual learning. How has their social and emotional health been? Has your student been depressed? Have they had a hard time not having a connection with other students? Even if they did really well academically, if they have struggled this year, I think that's a factor that your family needs to think about and discuss. In general, how easily does your student learn? Are they the kind of student that picks things up quickly? Or are they the kind of student that needs additional support? Are there members in the immediate family who are more susceptible to COVID-19? That's certainly a factor that families should think about. Or does the child, his or herself, have any conditions that make them susceptible to additional risk? So I think those are some questions that families should be asking themselves and should be thinking about themselves. I want to acknowledge that parent guilt is real. As I've talked with parents, many of them have struggled as they've thought about what's in their best interest, and I just cannot say enough that it will really depend on you and your family and what will be right for your child given risk factors, given our local data here in Washington County, given the unique characteristics of your learner. And so if that means that as a family you think that virtual learning is your option, great. We will support your family, and we will work very, very hard to make sure that that is an equitable program that works for you and your children. This is a whole year of school, and we do not take that lightly, and we want to make sure that that experience is one that's equitable and that will do right by you and your family. If your family feels very strongly because of work obligations or because of risk factors or just because your kid's been really lonely, please, we would welcome them back to Belpre City Schools, and don't feel guilty about it. If local health conditions trigger an additional indicator or warning, we will dial it back. And if local numbers suggest that there's a public emergency at level 4, we will go full on remote. And it will be local data that drives that decision making as we move forward. So I just want to acknowledge that and provide guidance to families as you prepare to have that conversation. And we will continue to mitigate that risk where we can. So I have talked a lot. So at this point, I'm going to turn to Mrs. Keeling, and answer some questions.
All right, Mr. Greenlee, one question that we would like to start with is to provide some clarity for our viewers. They're wondering, what color are we on right now as a county?
Yeah, great question. So we are currently Yellow 1, Yellow County. So that was a recent change as of last Thursday. The first week that Mike DeWine announced the system, we were yellow, and the next week we became orange, and then we held orange for 2 weeks, and then we were just downgraded last Thursday to a yellow level 1 public health advisory level. So my understanding, based on conversations with the public health department, is that that was triggered by an event held out in Vito, where a group of 20-somethings and some 15 to 18-year-olds were present, and did not take precautions, did not socially distance, did not have facial coverings, and an outbreak at that party is what led us to a level 2 health emergency. So I mean, I can't say enough. All of us would like to have students back. Even if we have students back, we would like to have a sports season. But you know, it's the decisions that our families make every day right now that are going to determine what our numbers look like in the next month. So to the extent that families and students can make good decisions, can opt to wear facial covering, can be socially distant, cannot go to that party or event, will help us have a low level of advisory here in Washington County and permit for the safe return of students. So, thank you.
Sure.
What's next?
All right, our next question is, will each student get a Chromebook, or will it be one per family? So how are we giving Chromebooks out? Yeah, so if you elect for virtual learning, it will be one Chromebook per student. So if you have a family of 4, we'll give 4 Chromebooks per student. If you're a family 1, we'll give 1. So if you elect for virtual, we'll make sure you have the device that you'll need to be successful. If you have your own device and don't need a device, that's fine with us too. You know, we won't provide it, but that's where we are now. Okay. Our next question is about the 3rd grade guarantee. How can we ensure that our children will have the learning that they need in order to pass that test, and will that test take place this year?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So my gut tells me the 3rd grade reading guarantee will not be a barrier this year. Last year, the legislature voted to eliminate that particular barrier for students last year, and my suspicion is that they will not have it be a barrier this year. The legislator did, or excuse me, the state board did vote a couple of weeks ago that they would not increase the cut score this year, that they would keep it flat. But my thinking is that it will not be a barrier. But even if it isn't a barrier, we will continue to provide supports, obviously in school to support learners, and then virtually. I think one of the critical things, even if you're, especially if you're a virtual or an in-person learner, is to really get a firm grip of where kids are at the beginning of the year. There's been some interesting research out that talks about the COVID slide or loss of learning that's happened. I mean, usually we have a summer slide during the summer where students may lose learning over the summer, but there's been some research out there that would be exacerbated by the COVID-19 on top. So I think we need to get a firm feel through assessment on where students are, and then, like we always do in 3rd grade, we will provide targeted support to those students that are still struggling readers, so that they, even if they don't have to take the test, are prepared into the 4th grade. You know, it's the 4th grade where we say that students in K-3 learn to read, and students from 4th grade on read to learn. So it's a critical skill, and regardless of whether the legislature pushes that back, we will work to make sure kids are supported.
So we're going to focus on a couple of just organizational questions. So
yes.
At this point, is there air conditioning at the elementary school?
Yes, yeah. We have air conditioning at the elementary school. They have had that for some time. So yeah, every room and shared space in the elementary school is air conditioned and for students. Yeah.
This is an important question. Will there be a nurse at these school buildings?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, we have one nurse that is a 5.5-hour nurse that is there every day, and we are looking to have up to 2 additional nurses for portions of the day at the beginning and the end of the day to make sure that we have support at both the high school and the elementary school campus when students are coming to school, and then at dismissal time as well. So we were able to receive some additional money from Mike DeWine and the Ohio legislature through the Federal CARES Act we received approximately $50,000, and we will be allocating some of that towards additional nursing support in our buildings.
Now, connected to the question about our nurse, one parent would like to know if the nurse that is on campus would be able to give the COVID-19 swabs if the case is suspected.
So that's a great question. It's one I can ask the public health department and see if they would authorize a local check. But my suspicion would be that you would need to go to a local health provider. And my understanding from talking with folks out in the community is that some testing locations have faster turnarounds than others. So I think there's a rapid test at CVS. I'm looking in the room. I'm seeing head shakes. Which CVS is it in? Belpre or Marietta? Do we know? That has more rapid check than if you go to other places where it might have, a couple of weeks, a couple of week delay, not a couple of weeks, but 5 to 10 day delay. So if folks do want to get a test, I'm being told that might be the best place to get a fast return on it.
Now, are students required to be tested prior to returning to school in August?
No, we will not be testing students before they return in August.
So families that are electing to take a virtual option, do they have to use a Chromebook and take a school Chromebook, or if they have a home computer, can they use that?
Yeah, you can bring your own device or you can use a Chromebook. So it would be up to the families to do or to use whatever equipment they would like to.
Also regarding virtual learning, and this is a big question that we're getting from several parents and families on our various channels, will there be specials included in the virtual learning environment?
Yeah, so I think it's something we would like to see. I know that Mrs. Keeling, who's with us, has been working very closely with her staff to make that happen, but I don't know yet what that will look like. A lot of it will depend on numbers of virtual students and in-person students and working out the scheduling. So, just from a value statement standpoint, we want all of our students to feel connected. We want them to have access to resources in our schools, but as of today, I don't know 100% what that would look like for virtual learners. But we have received that question, and I think Mrs. Keeling is going to work, with her folks there on campus and try to make that happen.
So while the students are working in our virtual academy, are they going to be able to work at their own pace, or will there be assigned times and due dates?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there will be assigned times and due dates. So, and we think we will do a little bit more formalized than we did last March. So thinking about, on Sunday, all the assignments go out for the week and they're due at the end of that week, so that all families, prior to going into the week will know a little bit about, hey, here are the assignments that are going to be due, here are the objectives that we're going to have, here are the assessments that we might have, and here are learning opportunities that we'll have during the course of the week so that families can strategize and think through how that would work. So, yeah.
If a family decides to go online and do our virtual academy and then they find out that their child needs some additional help, when can they enroll to come back into the building in person? Yeah,
so I should have mentioned that before. That's a great question. So if families elect to go virtual, we will ask that they stand to that commitment until January. So this semester, first and second 9 weeks, first semester, that families stay in the virtual option, and then we will send out an additional survey to those families in December and let them know, hey, you can come back, you would like to come back, or if you would like to continue the year. So it would be a commitment at least through the year, and that is strictly staffing and cost driven. So if we're going to allocate teachers to those positions and train them, and if we're going to support students at the Ohio Valley Educational Service Center, we need a firm commitment from families so that we can get everything planned and ready to go for those students.
This sounds like a high school related virtual academy question. For families who elect to go that route, will there be someone to help their child with course selection so that if they do decide to return back to in-person learning, it's a smooth transition?
Yeah, absolutely. So we would ask you to contact the Ohio Valley Educational Service Center for that support. Their number is 740-439-3558, and they want you to hit extension 4239. Again, that number is 740-439-3558, extension 4239, and you can work directly with representatives there to get more information.
So if a child is quarantined, Mr. Greenlee, do they automatically convert to virtual school while they're in quarantine?
So while a student is in quarantine, they wouldn't automatically result to a virtual school, but they would continue to be assigned to that in-person teacher and would be given the work similar to any other type of absence. So if they would be provided with copies of what's going on and would have at least as much time as they are out to get those materials back in. So we would hope that would be a speedy turnaround, but in the event that it takes a little bit longer, students would have more time to get those courses done. So if a student is quarantined, they would still be in person. They would not transfer over to virtual, and we would keep working.
So at the high school, and we could also address this at the elementary school, will there be class changing at the high school, or will they be isolated into one classroom and one group?
Yeah, so we are committed to mitigating as much as we can movement in the hallway and keeping students spaced, but the reality with the high school course schedule is that there is going to be passing time. So Mr. Pepper and his DLT are still working on details of what that will look like, but yes, there will still be passing time, but we will be working hard to somehow stagger it, make one-way hallways, move students around the building, outside perhaps, just to keep as many students out of the hallways as possible. But yes, there will be passing time.
So are students allowed to wear face shields instead of masks?
So we would ask that students wear a cloth mask. It's from my individual reading of the research, it is more effective than a face shield. However, again, if there is a bona fide health issue out there, let us know, contact the superintendent's office, and we will be happy to discuss that with you, and your family. So again, we strongly recommend a cloth mask, but if there are individual circumstances, we'd ask you to contact my office, your building principal, and we can work with you on that.
So we've had a couple of questions regarding signing up for virtual learning and students with IEPs. Generally, our parents are asking, how do you elect to go virtual if your child has an IEP? So is there a different process? Mm-hmm. And is there a way to get some more information on how to help their child who has an IEP prior to making that decision? Yeah,
great question. So the first question would be no. There wouldn't be any additional steps for a student with disabilities to opt for virtual learning. There is a survey that is accessible on our website, and it's also embedded in the fall reopening plan document available on our website, and that will allow you just directly to sign up. If you would like to have a conversation about that prior, we'd ask you to email our special ed director, Mr. Jason Hott, and we can schedule an IEP time. We can either schedule an IEP meeting, talk formally, or you can call him and talk. If you want to call me, we can talk. Whatever we can do to provide families with the information they need. I've had the opportunity to talk to many families the last 2 weeks. Would encourage folks, please reach out. We really are serious. We want to make sure that you have all the information that you need so you can make an informed choice about how your learner will be served this year.
So considering our social distancing requirements in small spaces, how many children will be in a classroom?
Yeah, so we will have students spaced out at least 3 feet in classrooms. If we can get to 6 feet, we will do it. But our guidance locally is at least 3 feet, and so the number of students will depend on the size of the classroom. So some classrooms are bigger than others. Some classrooms may have some furniture that takes up more space that we would have to work through. But I can't give you a firm number of students in a room because they vary in shape and size. But we are shooting for 3 feet distance, and hopefully more than that if we can, based on the numbers.
So this question is considering how we will group students for Virtual Academy, and the parent would like to know, is it going to be a combination of grades to the teacher assigned, or will students be in their own grade level?
Yeah, great question. So it will depend on the numbers. So in K6, we would hope to have 1 grade level teacher assigned per department for virtual learners, but if we have an abundance of learners in 1 grade level, we may have to assign 2, or if we have low numbers in 2 grade levels, we may assign 1 educator to flow between 3rd and 4th grade. So it will be driven by the numbers of students that sign up, but we want to make sure that this works, so we will be cautious with our number there, and it will be driven by the number of students that opt to go virtual.
So, Mr. Greenlee, this question has popped up a couple of times. If a child comes back to school in person and then the family or the child decides that they are uncomfortable, are they going to be able to stop and go online?
Yes, yeah, we will allow that. So if the year starts and for whatever reason a family decides that they would like to opt to go virtual, we will allow that. We really would ask though that if you are certain or near certain that that's what you want to do, that you please let us know now so that we can plan around that and we can work around that and we can staff accordingly. But in the event that a family would like to opt out, we will permit that, but it will not work the other way. So once a family does opt into virtual learning, they would be expected to stay virtual until the semester break.
All right, talk us through a little bit, Mr. Greenlee, how recess and lunchtime will look on both campuses. Will students be all in the same space together eating lunch like they have in the past, or will they be split apart?
So the answer is it depends, again, based on grade levels. So at the elementary school, well, regardless of the elementary or high, our guidance from the public health department has been that our cafeteria can only have a 50% level of students in it. So if we could hold 300 kids last year, we have a cap of 150 kids this year in the cafeteria at any one time. So that is a hard and fast rule that we will adhere to. And so it sounds like in the elementary school that most of the students will be in classroom eating. That's my understanding based on where that district, where that building leadership team is right now. And the high school is still working on its specific plans for how can they accommodate the number of students in the high school. So more details to come on that end, but there is a hard and fast cap of 50%.
So this is an important question, Mr. Greenlee. One of our parents is asking if it is safe to send students back to school, considering that all of our board meetings and this meeting in particular had to be held virtually. Yeah, so I think this meeting has mostly been held virtually for folks at home to be able to engage with us more easily, and I think it's just a question of risk. So if we feel like we need to take risks, we will do it. And as you have read, the American Pediatric Association report, or the guidance that I've read, has talked about that balance between what are the implications of students not being in building and what are the implications of students being in building. So where we cannot take risks, we won't take risks, like tonight where we're having a virtual meeting for families, and we'll do all that we can to accommodate families or to accommodate a reduction in risk moving forward. And as far as the safety of schools, I would not open if I did not feel like the safety precautions that we have talked with the Department of Public Health about and our local data show, it wouldn't even be a conversation. If either of those were not in place, we wouldn't be having the conversation. But we do feel that based on local numbers and what we're seeing, that these are the precautions that we will take to have a safe reopening. That could change very quickly between now and then, depending upon where numbers are. And I think that individual families have to have that conversation at the table. So what are the needs of your learner? How easily do they learn? What's their mental health been like? What's your schedule as a parent or caregiver? How can you support them? What are your health conditions? I think every family has to make that decision and that calculus for themselves. But we are committed to being able to serve both populations of families. Again, if we continue to be at a level 1 or level 2, and if it increases beyond that to a level 3, we will serve half the students, and if it increases to a level 4, we would go full remote. So just a quick note, these questions are coming fast and furious,
okay,
and I know I'm missing a few of them,
okay,
so I'm trying really hard to get all of your questions in, everybody. Be patient with me. This is a question about sports. So if a child elects to go virtual at the high school, are they still allowed to participate in sports if we're able to have those this year? Yes. So if a family does elect to go virtual, that is still one of our students, and if that individual family feels that they would like to continue to be involved in our sports program or band program, we would permit them to do that. We would ask, though, of course, that family continue to make sound decisions with social distancing, because those students would be with our students, and we would just want to make sure that we're taking precautions there. But yeah, absolutely, those are our students, and we believe strongly in extracurricular activities. And to the extent that we have those offerings this year, we still don't know for sure if sports is going to be on the table or not. We're hearing guidance from the Ohio
High School Sports Association, but we're also hearing from Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Husted that they are reviewing actively those plans. So if we are permitted to have them, yes, virtual learners can take part.
Will students at the elementary level still be able to take and complete AR tests?
Yes. So elementary level students, we will open up AR tests for families to have access at home, so that as they read books, they can be assessed for comprehension, and families and students can know where they stand.
Mr. Greenlee, talk a little bit about time commitments for virtual learning. Will it be a set school day, or will there be some flexibility for parents and children?
Yeah, it will not be a set school day, so there will be flexibility. I think educators will offer opportunities via Zoom for group instruction, and we'll also record some learning activities for families to show at home, in their home, but it will not be something where it's hard and fast, and we will try to have teachers schedule meetings at different times during the week, so that if families can't get to a morning or an afternoon, that we have some difference in when that's scheduled to accommodate families.
If a child is in virtual academy and elects to return to us in January in person, would they have the same teacher that they had while they were in virtual academy?
So I guess it depends. So if in January risk levels have dropped either because of a mixture of vaccines or therapeutics, that we all feel more strongly from a public health standpoint that schools can continue to operate, then yes, we would probably have all of us go back in-house, and those teachers would be the same people. But if not, then that teacher will continue to teach virtual learners, and we would transition that student back to one of the other classroom teachers.
So this question is specific to our kindergarten students, but could also be thought about for all of our children as we think about playing and being on the playground together. So will children be allowed to play together, and is our playground going to be accessible?
So I'm not sure. I'm going to turn to you on that if you don't mind, Mrs. Keeling.
So we are working really hard to make sure that our children have the opportunity to have playtime outside. We know how valuable that is and how valuable that fresh air is, and the time in the sunshine. So we're working to divide up our fields here at the elementary school and create space for all of our children to play safely. We'll most likely try to keep them with their homeroom and with their children that they learn with all day long, so they'll get to play with those friends that are in their classroom, but they'll have lots of different opportunities to move around on the playground. We're in conversation right now about whether or not it is safe to use our playground equipment, and so that's more information that we'll have once we get closer to the start of school.
Yeah, thank you. We believe strongly in recess. We think it's an important part of the educational experience, and to the extent that we can provide field activities, we will, and we'll continue to investigate what the best practice is with regards to playground equipment.
This is a celebration. The children at the high school, or the teenagers at the high school, are very excited about the air conditioning.
Oh, good.
They're sending a big thank you your way.
That's good to hear. So, the Board of Education allocated that money for the safety of students and staff, and I think it's been a long time coming, and we're grateful to the voters that passed the operating levy that allows us to have the funds that we need to make that expenditure. So, thank you to the Board of Education for their passing and their leadership, and we're excited to have that in place for students in the fall.
And just a point of clarification, when you say high school, do you mean 7th grade and up?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, if I say high school, I mean 7 through 12. Thank you.
And we're going to circle back around to this question. You talked a little bit about it, but just again, because it's popping up a couple of times, if children are exposed or test positive and must quarantine, who will handle what happens next? Will the entire class quarantine? Who steps in at that point?
Yeah, so the public health department will make those decisions. So to the extent that we can, we will be cohorting students and limiting exposure to other students, and we'll be strict on our seating charts in classroom and in the bus, and try to sit students together if they have classes together, if they sit by each other on the bus. And then we would provide that information to the Marietta Belpre Public Health Department, and they would talk with the student, and then they would let us know, hey, here's 5 to 7 students that are quarantined. We as the district will not know which student, or if any of those students frankly has a positive test. We will just be told this, these students have been quarantined, and they would work directly with those families to notify them. So we don't have much say in that. That will be driven wholly by the public health professionals. at Washington, Belpre, or at the Belpre Marietta Health Department, but we will abide by whatever they tell us.
This is an important question. Mr. Greenlee, if a child is quarantined, will days be counted as truancy?
Yeah, so I can say that all of the guidance that we have received from Columbus has been that absences like this should not be punitive. So there should not be consequences for students that may have to be quarantined, or frankly for parents that are doing what we're asking them to do, which is to say, hey, looks like you've got a sniffy nose and a sore throat. I'm going to keep you home today and maybe tomorrow and monitor you before I send you back. So the law of truancy is still on the books as of today. I anticipate that will change when the Ohio House and Senate are reconvened next month. But regardless of that, I want to assure families that making the right decision will not be punitive for you or your family, and we will make sure that they are provided opportunities to make up their work and to not be referred to a court for truancy.
Just a point of clarification, we've had a couple of parents ask when our start date is for school.
Yeah, thank you. August 24th is the start date for school. So we kicked it back a little bit. One, to give parents an opportunity to get ready, to give teachers an opportunity to get ready and to plan a little bit extra for this year. And we also kicked it back to make sure that the AC installation gets done on time and it's operating normally before students come back. So August 24th is the targeted start date. I will caveat that, though, also would say that the schools will roll students in gently that week. So the elementary school will have certain grade levels or students on Monday and Tuesday, and then I think they're thinking about Wednesday having all students back. And the the high school is looking at a similar arrangement. So we will have more details by the first week of August, but August 24th is the date, but it might not be all students on that date. We will work to ease families back in.
Okay, when will parents find out who their teachers are for their children?
Yeah, so once we have surveys back next week and we have a firm grip on which families have elected to go virtual and which families will serve in person, we will then work to contact families that we haven't heard from to try to get information there, so it may be a lag time, but assuming we get everything back, we would work to let families know who their teacher is, either virtually or remotely, as soon as possible. When is that normally, Mrs. Keeling?
So typically it would be about 2 weeks before we return to school.
Okay.
The date fluctuates based on when our actual start date is.
Okay.
It would be about 2 weeks prior to the return to school.
So I don't see any reason why we couldn't reach that commitment this year.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Will students who attend school but have a medically approved letter for face mask exemption be isolated in a room, or will they be able to stay in their classrooms and their homerooms?
Say that again.
So if a student comes to school and has a medically exempt letter
Yes.
for wearing a face mask,
Yeah.
will they be isolated? So will they have to learn on their own separately from their classmates,
Yes.
or will they be able to be in the classroom?
All right,
with their
yeah.
friends?
So no. So if there's a bona fide health condition if there's a bona fide health condition that the superintendent and the principal have been made aware of and approved, then no, that student would be permitted in class with their colleagues.
One parent would like to just have some clarification on the understanding for virtual learning for elementary students versus high school students. At the elementary school, it'll be online with a teacher at certain times, and at the high school, will the virtual learning be similar to what they did last time on their own time?
Right, so no, it will not be similar. So students in the high school that elect for virtual learning, they will be assigned an educator through the Ohio Valley Educational Service Center. My understanding is that there is an online platform that will drive the content and curriculum for that experience. So it would be a little bit more organized, I would say, because it will be created content that's online with videos, and then the student would have the ability to interact with a teacher, an ability to interact with a content expert, and the ability to interact with a mentor. So there will be supports for those students that are enrolled, but the high school will look different than it looked last year. And I would just say for folks out there thinking about the elementary, again, in the elementary, it will be synchronous learning. The same content that's being covered in building would be covered virtually. There may be some slight modifications based on where those learners are, just like there would be in a normal school year, but that's the way it would be.
So at the high school, Mr. Greenlee, when considering electives in virtual learning, will things like concert, band, and choir be available for those virtual learners?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's a question that I discussed earlier with Mr. Van Pelt. So I think to the extent that we can continue to serve students and have them involved in electives, we would like to do that. So we would have to work out scheduling, but if you are a virtual high school student and would like to continue to have access to choir or band locally, I'm not 100%, but I'm 85% at this point that we would offer that to families, because we would really like to have them continue to grow in their skills and be a part of that. So not only would virtual learners be able to be part of the marching band, but we might be able to support families and have them in building for that. So I say 85%, but I feel very strongly that I think we can make that work, but I can't commit right now.
It's important to note that some of these things are still in the design process.
Yeah, and things change, right? So conditions are changing, and we're learning more every day. So, but the nice thing is that we are trying to create some locally derived, data-driven decisions as to what school will look like and how we will scale back as conditions here locally improve or do not improve.
So this is a question regarding transportation that a couple of different parents have asked. If they drop their child off to school in the morning, but need their child to ride the bus in the evening to daycare, can they do that?
Yes, I think that is something that we can do. We would need to have some communication from you, so please let us know if that fits into your category. But as of today, I think that is something that we can offer. Yes.
Okay. Just catching up here.
Yep. Take your time.
Yeah. Let's see. One question that we had was about backpacks and lunch boxes and lockers and cubbies. So will students still be able to bring their backpacks and lunch boxes to school? Will they have access to lockers? Will they have access to cubbies?
So I'm going to deal first with elementary school. They will still have cubbies.
We will, because we're able to do cubbies and wall hooks, one to a student. So students will be able to put all of those items up, and that would be a common area where they would have their masks on if they weren't able to space. And then lunch boxes, we also, at this point, feel like would be a safe option, because they'll be coming straight out of backpacks and going straight back into backpacks.
Okay. Yep.
So all of those things should still function for us at the elementary school.
High school students, I won't commit yet. I haven't heard yet from the building leadership team there if they will have lockers or not. So I won't make any commitment there either way. But we will get that. We will make that announcement as soon as the leaders in that building have had a chance to sort that out.
So this is an interesting question, and it's coming from a parent of one of our younger students, but will our teachers be able to work closely with children in proximity? So will they be able to be in small group together, or say a first grade teacher being up beside a first grade student helping them with their reading?
Yeah, so I think yes. Every educator may have his or her own preference for proximity to students, I think based on where they may be. But from my perspective, a school is a school, and we hope that we continue to have proximity to students and to teach them. But again, they would, if you're going to be within 3 feet, you would have to have face masks, and individual educators will drive the decision making on what their comfort level is.
Will virtual students be able to sign up for free lunch? Will they have access to those forms?
All virtual learners will automatically qualify for lunch, regardless of income. So we would still ask families to fill out the form, because that form is important for us to report to the state for funding purposes what our free and reduced population is. But regardless of income, if you're a virtual learner through a USDA waiver, we will be able to provide meals at no cost.
Will there be any after-school activities taking place, like this example was PTO, or any of our after-school events? Yes.
So the answer is no. So we will have our sports teams continue to meet, but with the exception of maybe the Pioneer program at the elementary school and other contractual obligations that we might have with an entity, we are going to close our campuses at night. We want to limit the number of outsiders in the building. One, just to mitigate the number of exposure or risks in the building, and secondly, to allow custodians to have more time and consistency, knowing that the building will be empty and they can move and flow through to get it all cleaned.
So this is a transportation question, Mr. Greenlee. How will we keep masks on children on the bus?
Yeah, so our bus drivers will continue to monitor how our students have face masks and facial coverings. There has been some discussion about having an aide on the bus. But we've also been advised by the public health department that we should not have more adults than we need to on the bus with students. So if we have issues with individual students not wanting to wear masks over time, it may be that we'll have to have a conversation with that family and just say, look, we tried, but your student continues to not be able to wear a mask, and we would work individually with families to think about an alternative transportation arrangement.
Okay. Let's see. Will library services be open at the elementary school and at the high school?
Yes.
And how will our specials look?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about specials earlier. I think Mrs. Keeling is working really closely with the specials teachers there. From a value standpoint, we feel strongly that we want students to have access to specials, but based on numbers and schedules in the building, that may look different for virtual learners. So please let us continue to work internally, but we would like to have that. So I'm going to do 3 more questions if that's all right. So if you want to pick your top 3.
This is a great question, just on the variety of masks that are available. So what's considered an acceptable mask for students? Surgical, handmade, bandanas?
Yeah, so I think all of those are viable options. I do think that a cloth mask more than a bandana has been, from the research that I've seen, has more utility than others. But as long as a facial covering covers the nose and the mouth and is in accordance with our dress code policy, doesn't have any offensive language or symbols or signs or anything like that, then my answer as of today is that they would be appropriate. Now, as we get closer, if medical research changes on that, or if we have issues, that's something that we may revisit, but that's my answer for today.
Will there be any orientations or informational nights or online meetings for students? And this would be in the K-6 building, and then also for our students going from 6th grade to 7th grade, and our students going from 8th grade to 9th grade. So some of those pivotal grades where those situations in classrooms change. Will there be any information shared?
Yeah, so we absolutely, yes. We're committed to working directly with families to have that information. My direction to the principals will be that they should provide opportunities or maybe even film videos for families to view from home that go over some of those procedures that we would normally talk about in person. And we want to make sure that information gets out to families.
This is a question that's popped up a couple of times, and I think people are just popping in at different times, and will be a great piece to revisit as we wrap up our evening tonight. Where can families find the information about signing up for virtual learning? Yeah, so again, in this, this is Belpre City Schools Fall 2020 reopening plan. There are links to this on our social media and our website and our app. You can also access it on the COVID-19 section of our website or in the document section of our app. And on the 3rd page, there's a link to the survey where families can go in and let us know, yes, I want to go virtual, or yes, I want to go in person. And if you're going to go in person, if you would like your families to take the bus or not. So that's available to you on our website digitally, and we would ask families to complete that by August 3rd, 5 o'clock, so that we can start getting back to the lab and making preparations for students to return. So is there one more stinging question, or can that conclude for now? I think there's a great note to make, and then we can conclude.
All right.
That we want to make sure, and Mr. White actually is pointing this out, that we always want to make sure that our parents keep their contact information up to date with our school offices.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
especially this year.
Never been more important. Yes. So I just want to conclude by saying sincerely to families, please have a conversation at the dinner table and weigh what's best for you and your children. If they don't have indicators that would leave them susceptible to this, but you still would like to have them home, have them home. Let them learn virtually. If you feel like because of your schedule or your circumstances that you want your student to be in person, we would love to serve them. But we feel very, very strongly that we want families to make individual decisions and to not have guilt over that. And to the extent that we can continue to communicate, please call or email me or your building principals and let us know, what additional questions you might have so that you can make an informed decision by August 3rd. So with that, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to be with you all tonight, and we look forward to seeing everyone back on August 24th.